To show you how important trade is to our daily lives, I challenge myself to spend 2 weeks without trading. Here are the rules of the challenge. 2 weeks without trading, specifically food. I am allowed to trade pretty much everything else. So things like water, salt, vitamins, medicine, I'm allowed to have all that stuff. I can also, trade electricity and Wi-Fi and all the other kind of modern daily essentials. This is specifically a eating challenge. Can I feed myself without trading with other people? So we'll see how that goes. Also, I'm not going to be drinking anything that comes from a store either. So no alcohol, no coffee. And I can use the food that I have stored up. So 2 weeks with just food that I have produced. I'm in a unique situation because I've got a lot of help. I've got help from my chickens. I've got help because I love to fish, and thankfully I've still got a little bit of deer left in the freezer from last deer season, so that's going to help me push through. The first week of this challenge was absolutely brutal. I felt horrible every morning. More than anything, that first 3 days or so was absolutely torture because I couldn't have coffee. I don't know how to grow coffee beans, and I didn't have any that I had previously produced or anything like that. So the lack of caffeine was really a drain on my system. I had headaches all morning, pounding headaches. I had nausea all day. I had all kinds of bathroom problems. We won't even get into all that here, but it was really, really rough. Less of a big deal, but, still bothered me. I wanted to have beer. Beer was what I, had on Friday and Saturday nights. And that first week, not having my ritualistic end of the week beer, that was a big bummer. Thanks to the chickens, I was able to eat, and I was eating eggs all day, every day. I have a total of 10 chickens. Those chickens were able to produce on average 8 or 9 eggs a day. So I was basically eating all the eggs that my chickens produced, about 8 eggs a day. But I was still hungry. Even when eating 8 eggs plus a little bit of deer steak, I realized I was still super duper hungry. So I went online and did a little bit of... I found out how many calories are in a regular kind of medium-sized egg. And it turns out it's about 70. Internet says 66 calories. I multiplied that by the about 8 eggs I was eating a day, and I was only getting a little more than 500 calories. You do a little research, you look up how many calories does an adult need. They say around 2,500 calories a day for an adult man. Oh, that is not even close. I was getting, even including the deer steak, less than a third of the caloric intake I needed for a day. I also found out that eggs gave more calories in the form of raw eggs than they do when cooked. So in order to save every calorie I could, I started taking a page out of Rocky to drink my eggs raw. That's when my wife said something very special. She said,
"Can't you eat dandelions?"
I realized I was missing the way that most mammals get their food, through foraging, rummaging around for nuts and berries and wild plants. A little bit of research at the library helped me realize that there are all sorts of foods that I can eat growing in my back and front yards. I was able to find all sorts of stuff. First of all, dandelions, which turned out to be a pretty yummy way to get some greens and some vitamins in. Poke greens, another way to get some vegetables into the meal. And a Kentucky staple. Of course, you guys may have heard of the Poke Green Festival that they have here in Kentucky. Mulberries, which are berries that grow on the trees, especially in the spring. Those mulberries really helped me get that little hint of sweetness into my diet and break the monotony of just protein, 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 protein.
Dandelions.
It was at this point that I made the best meal of the whole challenge. I made a delicious...
So now, finished product, got farm fresh eggs, our out of the freezer deer steak, some dandelion greens, and some sauteed dandelion stems, and dandelion tea. That's dandelion roots with a little dandelion flower up on top. How pretty. And there's the dog.
However, that deer steak that I had was the last deer steak that I had in the freezer. I was now out of deer steak, only eating eggs, and I had basically eaten all the dandelions in my yard.
Did you do it?
Yes.
What did it cost?
By the end of the challenge, I was foraging hours a day just to try and meet the bare minimum of what I had to eat to feel like I wasn't going to keel over and die. I was absolutely starving myself. I wouldn't wish this challenge on absolutely anybody. I lost 12 pounds in the first 11 days of the 2-week challenge, and I felt very drained. Do not try this at home. It was absolutely torture. Of all the many lessons I learned while I was doing this, perhaps the most clear in my mind was opportunity cost. It took hours and hours for me to gather food. If I have to get my own food through means like fishing and foraging and raising chickens and collecting the eggs, that's a ton of time each day that I can't spend working or contributing to my family and things like this. Early economic thinker David Ricardo put forth an idea of comparative advantage. The idea that production should be done by those with lower opportunity cost. Let's see if we can use some numbers to apply it to this case. If I'm going to spend 4 hours a day fishing, foraging, and cooking, I give up the chance to spend that time working. If I could make $20 an hour, which I hope I could, I'm giving up a total of $80 for the privilege of doing this work each day. This is my opportunity cost. It would take a fast food joint less than 5 minutes to produce enough food for me to eat throughout the day. With this 5 minutes making my $10 order, they give up the chance to make someone else's $10 order. That other $10 order is their opportunity cost. Since my opportunity cost of $80 is so much more than their opportunity cost of $10, Ricardo would argue I should work with my time and just buy food at the fast food joint or at the grocery store, taking advantage of comparative advantage. There's another important idea to this story too, which is product variety. Just like with international trade, one of the things you give up by trying to do it all on your own is variety. If one country tries to produce all the goods that they consume, they won't be able to have the benefit of pulling from all the different climates and regions of the world and various cultures. If I try and make all the food myself, it turns out I eat a ton of eggs. And comparative advantage may not be the whole story anyway. There's arguments from comparative advantage may tell us that people that make a lot of money per hour should just work more and then pay the difference to a nanny to raise their children. That way they still come out ahead from a comparative advantage point of view. But if you're just paying someone to raise your kids, there might be some sort of miscalculation. Maybe we're missing something. Maybe there's value that you get by engaging in this kind of work. Maybe I'm creating enjoyment by raising my own kid and by producing my own food. We need to take this value, this consumption value of me enjoying making my own food and enjoying the food I make into account as well. After all, I do really raise chickens, so there must be some value created beyond me just saving money on eggs. After doing this challenge, I have to say, trade creates wealth. I'm so much better off because I can trade with other people. And just like I would struggle to feed myself if I wasn't allowed to trade with other people in my community and other people globally, individual countries struggle to provide for the basic needs of their citizens when they can't trade with other countries. It reminds me of this quote from John Donne from this famous poem, "No man is an island entire of itself." I'll leave it right there, guys.